Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann. I'm a professional network marketer, an actor, and I'm also an EFT practitioner. And I'm really excited because today I'm joined by Rennie Gabriel. Hi, Rennie.
Hi, Julie.
So the great thing is we've never actually met, have we?
Uh, Good question. If
We
we
have actually had a
did,
conversation before today.
no, that's true. We may have met at Collaborate, but it would only been a couple minutes.
With so many other people, but absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, Rennie is a real estate investor, a wealth educator, a best-selling author, and a philanthropist. So do you know what? I actually watched your TEDx talk today,
Good.
Building Wealth with Purpose, and I was completely blown away. And you know, for anyone who hasn't watched it, you must watch it. But you have this incredible story, don't you? So how about we start with that and you tell us your story?
Yeah, it's not all that complicated. I mean, I've been divorced twice, had a business failure, so I've been broke 3 times, and found myself at age 50 with pretty much nothing. Um, I remember one of the situations where I had to collect soda bottles and cans to get the refund money so I could buy food. And the point being, I know what it's like to have no money. And at this point in time, 100% of the profits from the coaching that I do to help other people handle money powerfully, the objective is for them to become philanthropic. 100% of the profits from that business I can donate to charity at this point in my life. So we have, my wife and I have donated right around $100,000 so far to the charity Shelter to Soldier. And I try not to actually get in touch with it when I talk about it because I start to choke up. But the short answer is they save 2 lives at a time. Um, Dogs that could have been euthanized, if they have the right personality and size, are trained as service animals for soldiers who've come back with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injuries or, some other issue. And our soldiers in the US, and it's probably not that different in other parts of the world, they come home with, a traumatic brain injury, and the suicide rate is almost 22 a day, almost 1 an hour. So these dogs that could have been euthanized keep soldiers who've returned with these problems from committing suicide. Now, excuse me, not one soldier who's gotten their dog has committed suicide. So I am just very blessed to be able to donate to them. And that's my purpose for working at this point in life, because I don't have to work for a living, haven't had to work for a living for many years.
Wow, I mean that is incredible. So this charity, how did you become interested in the charity in the first place?
Well, my wife and I have always donated to various charities, and she was the chairperson of a foundation which was a part of Berkshire Hathaway, which a lot of people have heard of, Warren Buffett. And so as the chairperson, people would bring to her charities that they would want to have the foundation donate to. And someone brought to her attention this charity called Shelter to Soldier. And so my wife knew I was always donating to veteran causes as well as animal causes. And she said, well, this charity is saving 2 lives at a time, Rennie, you may want to check it out. And I fell in love with it. And the more I found out about it, the more I wanted to donate to them. And that became my purpose for teaching other people how to handle money, and the desire for more people to become philanthropic.
Incredible. And I know you have a real love for animals, particularly dogs. And I think you say that dogs have a higher purpose.
Yeah, they do.
You say more about that.
Well, as an example, I'll talk about Vic, who was one of the first dogs to get his service animal from Shelter to Soldier. He did underwater demolition work and suffered a traumatic brain injury. And when he came home, he couldn't even speak to his family. He stuttered so badly. So he pretty much sheltered at home. before the pandemic because he just couldn't go out and be in public. Um, and when he got his service dog, obviously that, and was trained with the dog, it provided more opportunities for him. He was starting to come out of his shell. He started to speak more clearly. He was able to go to events like his daughter's soccer games and things like that. And then he actually started speaking on behalf of Shelter to Soldier. And one of the things he explained is even though the dog wasn't trained for this, at one night, he was having night terrors, reliving the horrors of war. The dog jumped on the bed and started pawing at his chest to wake him up. Wasn't trained for that. That's the kind of connection the dogs create with the people who they're devoted to. And, you know, the thing they were trained for is, as an example, they could sense when the individual is starting to have a meltdown and would remove them from the environment. And that happened to him when he was in a department store and it was too crowded and he started, you know, he was starting to melt down from his post-traumatic stress, not just his traumatic brain injury. The dog started taking him out of the department store.
Amazing.
And that's how attuned these animals are to the people they're serving.
Does it have to be a particular type of dog?
No,
for it?
these were rescue dogs.
Mhm.
These were dogs from shelters that would have been euthanized. They were mixed breeds. They were a pit bull shepherd combination. They were an Akita. They were a Labrador retriever that mixes. Purebred dogs didn't make any difference. They were either living on the street or in a pound about to be euthanized.
Wow. And how long does the training take to have a dog ready to be with a soldier?
About a year. It takes about a year of training for the dog with the handler, taking care of the vet bills, the food, and all the rest of that. And before it starts matching up to the soldier. And it's kind of a process where it's a two-way street. The soldier doesn't just look at a dog and say, I'll take that one. And the dog doesn't look at someone and say, okay, you know, you're the one for me. Somehow it's a match. Somehow the dog and the soldier recognize they're a fit for each other. And then after that process, the soldier is trained on how to work with the dog. And the dog can turn on lights. The dog can open doors. The dog can, you know, bring in the newspaper. The dog can do all sorts of things to support the soldier, depending on what's needed. So it's just, I'm, like I said, I'm just, again, so blessed to be able to support this charity. We're their number 5th donor in terms of, I mean, ahead of the LA Rams, ahead of Petco Foundation. You know, my wife and I just feel so strongly toward this organization.
Amazing. So it sounds like quite a costly process, Rennie.
Yes and no. If the Veterans Administration will certify someone to get a dog, but to buy one, it's $25,000 to $30,000. They can barely function. How in the world can they buy a dog for $25,000? Shelter to Soldier has been able to keep the cost down to $15,000, and it's all from donations. There's no government support. And so they are very effective at what they do. And, you know, since it's all donations and the veteran gets the dog at no charge, they're housed to train with the dog, and all of this is covered from the donations.
How many dogs are there actually active now? Do you know?
From Shelter to Soldier, it's a newer organization. They're only about 6 years old. And so far they've trained and placed about 60 dogs.
So in a way, although that's amazing, it's a drop in the ocean, isn't it? So clearly much more money is needed to help more soldiers.
That's true. And if we think about it, and it's like a drop in the ocean, the only way I'm able to look at it and have some level of peace is to consider how overwhelming it is. And at the same time, at least we're lighting one candle in the darkness.
Oh, absolutely. So you've lit 60. That's extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the organization has.
Yeah.
My wife and I have supported 6 dogs and veterans.
And do you get to see them regularly?
They're about a 2-hour drive from us, so we've been there occasionally. We've met many of the people who've received their dogs. Some have been named after us because we financed it all. Like one of the dogs is named Millie because that was a dog my wife lost. Another dog, let's see, I'm trying to figure it, Ginger or something, but I don't think we've named one after one of my dogs, which is Scout, but we get to name the dog.
Fabulous. Hey, that's wonderful. So how can people find out more?
The easiest thing would be to go to sheltertosoldier.org and they can find out all about the charity, or they could send an email to me if they can't spell shelter to soldier. My website is wealthonanyincome.com, and they can go there and they can look around the website and they'll see information about shelter to soldier.
Brilliant. Now, while I've got you on here, it wouldn't be right if I didn't ask you some questions about wealth, would it?
Oh, yeah, I know something about it. I can talk about it.
So, I think the thing about people with wealth or rich, whatever you like to call it, is that it's not the end of it, having all that wealth. That's the exciting bit. What people really want to hear is the story. And obviously you've got a story, from rags to riches story, which is what people love, isn't it? And a lot of people really want results right now. They want to be wealthy right now, and they don't want to go through that journey. How important then is the journey?
Well, the journey is crucial because in reality, we've got statistics here in California of people who've won the lottery, and the nationwide statistics are probably the same. The worldwide statistics are probably the same. That about, I think it was like 7 out of 10, 70% of the people who've won huge lotteries, we're talking millions of dollars, have found themselves within 3 years broke beyond their winnings. So more money does not solve a problem of mismanagement. Creating wealth requires people to learn certain lessons about money. And the reality is 90%, 90% of the population has been taught nothing about how to handle money effectively. I mean, parents can't teach what they don't know. And unfortunately, teachers can't teach what they've never learned. And so it's not taught in the school system. Parents can't pass it on. So hardly anyone gets the information. And so that's the point of the work that I do, is to provide that missing information. And so you can't all of a sudden, I mean, if you win the lottery, all of a sudden you're wealthy. So what? If you lose it all in 3 years, what was the point?
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is the difference between being rich and being wealthy?
I think a lot of times people who look at someone and say they're rich, they're looking at the Porsche they're driving or the Rolex watch they're wearing or the fancy clothes or where they're going on vacation. They're equating it to the level of income that someone has and how they spend it. And wealth is not what you see. Wealth is the money that's behind all of that. In other words, I drive a 14-year-old, well, let's see, it's a 2006. No, a 15-year-old car. No one would think I'm wealthy, but the reality is, I could buy most people that they see are rich. So wealth is what you don't see, and the rich is what I'll call the flash.
And is it also about time freedom as well? That if you've got wealth, you've got money working for you, so therefore you can do more of the things you want to do.
Oh, yeah. Warren Buffett has a couple of quotes that I absolutely love. And one of them is, if you don't know how to make money while you're sleeping, you'll work for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter if I do this work or I don't do this work. the money's coming in, whether I'm awake or sleeping or, lounging on the beach somewhere. And his other quote, which I think is really important in this conversation about wealth or riches, has to do with too many people's attitude toward wealth, like it'll corrupt them. And it'll only corrupt them if they start by being corrupted in the first place. And Warren's quote, it's one of my favorites, is, "Of the billionaires I have met, money only brings out the basic traits in them. If they were jerks before they had money, they were simply jerks with $1 billion."
I love that. That's brilliant. It's so
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
because the other side of that is true as well. If someone is good and becomes wealthy, they'll still be good.
Yeah.
And if they want to donate to the causes that touch their heart and they become wealthy, then that's what they'll be doing.
Yeah. And the fact is, without money, you can't really make a very big difference.
No, no, if you're struggling to get by, you can't really benefit the things that are important to you if that's what you want to do. And too many people actually go to the other extreme and sacrifice their own family's well-being to donate to something that's important to them. And that's just the other side of the spectrum.
What advice would you give to someone who might be watching, who they're in debt right now, or maybe they're working really, really hard, but there's just never enough money at the end of the month?
Well, I mean, that's what I experienced. I made the mistaken, no, I lived by the mistaken idea that if I just earned more money, it would solve the problem. And I remember as a school teacher, when I got out of college, I was short about $200 a month. So I changed jobs and no, I was short 100 a month. And then I changed jobs and I was making twice as much money. And now I was short 200 a month. And I kept thinking, if I just earn more money, I'll solve it. And I was earning 100,000 a year. And now I was short $2,000 a month. And so I finally woke up to making more money is not the solution, but handling what I'm earning is. So the first area to look at is, where am I spending my money? And then when I got that under control, it became easier to make more money and have something left over. So the first thing is to look at the expenses. And if someone's in debt, there are different ways of handling it. But when I was 50 and broke, I had credit card debt, but I did not, let me emphasize this, I did not focus on paying off my debt first. I focused on building my investments and my net worth. And ultimately, the passive earnings paid the credit card debt.
Brilliant. Wow. So obviously you've been through some dark times and you've touched on them briefly. What
Yes.
has been the hardest part of your journey, Renee? And how did you keep going?
Well, shelter to soldier is one of the things that keeps me going. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't, I don't know. I don't know, sit around and not do a whole lot, probably. And that's really what it is at this point in life that keeps me going, is if I didn't have that cause to donate to, I don't know, I'd probably just sweep the stairs at one of our apartment buildings or water the lawn, or I don't know, swap out a garbage disposal, something to keep myself busy, but that would be about it.
But in the darkest times, when perhaps you might have thought, is this ever gonna change? How did you keep going?
That's where I have a quote that wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport. And that's probably the most important part of all. When I was by myself in my own head, I would reach out and have a conversation with someone else, because one of my mentors has a great expression: your mind is a dangerous place to go into alone.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And so, I took that to heart. And in those situations, I would reach out and have a conversation with someone else. And having accountability buddies, having people you can share with. I mean, my gosh, that works in 12-step programs. You got Alcoholics Anonymous, where The structure of the program is that you have a sponsor who's only maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of you in the program, and they support someone who's 1 or 2 steps behind them. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be amazing. You don't have to be a coach. All you need to do is be a step ahead of someone else, and you can support them. And so I had people in my life that, even if they weren't financially strong, I could still reach out to and have a conversation if I was in a dark place.
Great advice. You mentioned a couple of times purpose. How important is having purpose?
Well, it's crucial. It's the why that people do anything. When you drill down to the values of an individual, if one of the values that's really important to them is to impress other people, and that's the purpose, that's what they're going to have. But if one of the values is, making an impact on other people, or contributing to the planet, or saving trees, or saving whales, or saving the ocean, or saving animals, when that's a purpose, that allows the drive, it creates the fire to do the things that someone may not want to do on their own. And having people around you that know what your purpose is, who know what you're up to, keep you going as well. I have people on my team who remind me of what we're doing when I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah, so important, isn't it? Obviously, you've learned a lot about creating wealth.
Yes.
What have you learned? What are some of the lessons you've actually learned about other things in life?
Well, there are attitudes that the wealthy have that ordinary people lack. I'll give you a simple example. Most of us, when we hear familiar information, will make a statement. And one of the basics of creating wealth is to pay yourself first. And a lot of people have heard that. It involves treating yourself like you matter and keeping some of the income you're earning first before anybody else. And a lot of people will say, oh, I've heard that before, or I know that, or maybe even I've done that in the past. Well, ordinary people, like I said, will make a statement like that. What a wealthy person or someone with a wealthy mindset does instead is they ask questions like, how does that apply to my situation? Or where will I put the money? Or when will I begin? Or what difference would that make to me? They don't ask a why question like, oh, why don't I do that? Because then they'll just have reasons why they don't do it. So why questions are not the motivators. The wealthy person asks questions that start with how or who, like who can help me with this, when, what, where. They ask questions. And that's the kind of an attitude that supports the creation of wealth.
Yeah, because it's all about thinking in the future, isn't it, rather than thinking
Yes.
in the past. Absolutely. So when you're no longer on this planet, Renee, how would you like to be remembered?
Just as someone who cared enough about other people to make a difference. Excuse me. That's all.
I think that's clear. Anything else you'd like to say before we
Um,
finish?
Other than I've got some free resources if people just go to the website. If they want to see my TEDx talk and they go to wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx, they'll be reminded of some of the things we just spoke about.
Fabulous. Actually, I will post all your links below this interview. But Rennie, thank you so very much for talking to me today.
Thank you, Julie. It's my honor. Thank you.